Hey guys, so I'm currently on the fifth free agent cycle here, and I'm just going to quickly show you what I'm working with. So these are all my free agent targets, and I just basically added anybody who's rosterable as a target. So once we get close to spring training and people's prices are dropping, I'll have a nice little concentration of the value additions that I'll add to fill out my roster. But for now, I'm just going to ignore most of these guys and focus on a select few. Most notably being Ivan Rios, who's by far the best player in the free agency class. And you can see everything about him is just pretty awesome. And he's still only 30, so he'll definitely be good for the duration of any contract he receives. The only concern is that his range will slip a bit to prevent him from playing effective second base. But I'm going to be using him in left field since that's where I need help, and I love defense anyway. So his drop off in range really is going to be a huge concern for me. Um, and if you look at his numbers offensively, you can see that they're really strong, especially considering he played in St. Louis for his entire career, which is a bit of a pitcher's park. So you can only imagine he'd really mash in Fenway. And the thing that's great about free agency is, how are you going to go about adding a guy like this and, within trades or the draft or international free agency? He's a really scarce commodity just because he's so good. He's going to be like a fringe top 10 player in most worlds. So when I have an opportunity to procure him without sacrificing any value of my major league roster in return, that's always exciting. So you can see he was asking for 3 years at 31 million, and I just decided to open up with an offer about 3 times as much as that. The main reason is I mean, really, how low do these guys ever go for in good worlds where people are paying attention? Like maybe if I sort of, hit the exact right spot, I can get him for 85 million, but I mean, that's so hard, and it's really, saving an extra 2 million a year just isn't nearly as important. It's just getting him on my roster. And if everybody else is sort of inching up their bids or sort of sitting on their hands, I want to try to have a shot of locking him down really early before somebody just decides, gets bored with their big wad of cash and bumps him up to the max. Because I would try to get him for the max if I could, but the big problem is the $10 million signing bonus would commit 30 million this year. So since I only have $50 million of cap room to fill about 9 or so roster spots, that would take up a huge chunk of that, and I'd have to sacrifice a lot of talent in my other slots to get them. So, and I might even have to go back to the trade market to get some more cheap pre-arb guys. So I definitely want to get him as quick as possible without paying more than 20 million this season. And you can see I added the mutual option. There's a fair chance that if he doesn't decline this, I mean, if he does decline this, I'm not going to be upset at all. And if he doesn't decline it, there's a fair chance that I will accept it anyway and let him play out the last season for 20 million. You never know if he declines more than expected or gets hurt or whatever, or just generally underperforms. It's always good to keep the flexibility. And so a lot of people are gonna might say, so why would you spend more than 10% of your entire budget on a single player? And it's just because, I mean, I think it's really the most valuable way you can allocate, a huge chunk of your budget. This guy's going to be, 4 or 5 wins better than your run-of-the-mill $5 or $6 million free agency left fielder who plays average defense and puts up, the standard 800 or high 700s OPS. So there's definitely a lot of value there. And you saw that I acquired all those interchangeable pre-art pieces who come nice and cheap, without putting in too much effort. So because I was able to acquire all those guys, I have a nice little supporting cast around him. And this is the guy who's the tough commodity to acquire. I can't just sort of play Moneyball to get the guy who posts the 950 OPS with plus defense in left field. You know, you have to actually give up assets to get it. So I've been really conservative and stingy on my other areas. So it's actually not as big of a hit as you think. I can probably still give out a few other big contracts if I need to along the way if I keep racking up those cheap value guys. So I definitely hope he signs soon so I can just get that out of the way. It would be kind of a headache if I have to think about how much higher, how much I can afford to give him in signing bonus this year. And since I also need a third baseman, I have been looking at this guy, and you can see he's mostly pretty solid. The one glaring red flag is the 19th health, which is frightening. If you look at his DL history, he's only been on the DL 5 times and only once in the 60-day and a 10-year major league career. So it's not like he's a guaranteed miss a huge chunk of games throughout the season. And I'm going to make sure to have enough depth around him such that I can have other guys to pick it up if he does indeed miss a stretch of games. You can see his hitting numbers are pretty decent, even though he's been playing in a lot of offensive ballparks. And he's been coming off at a bit of a down year, but I think there's a good chance he'll rebound. That's probably just pure fluke. So he would definitely be a pretty solid way to fill my third base hole. You know, I'd have to be pretty happy with that with his above average defense. Still a bit concerned with, you know, a 31-year-old, $14 million training budget, bunch of bumps and bruises. If it wasn't for the 19th health, I would definitely be willing to give him more than 2 guaranteed years. But the 19th health is ever lingering, so I want to just give him 2 guaranteed years and keep my flexibility. I let off this morning with a 1-year deal, but I got outbid for that, so I'm definitely not going to give him a third guaranteed year. I don't know if I'm going to raise my average annual value this much, but this is pretty close to my max that I'll pay for this guy. So I'll be okay if I get him for this. If not, no big deal. I'll just look elsewhere. Another key point is you always want to have the highest possible percentage of the contract in the mutual option year. In this case, 3 years, the max is 40%. So, and the reason for that is obvious because the mutual option is non-guaranteed. I mean, I always facepalm when somebody goes 8 million, 7 million, 6 million with a mutual option because you're just giving them extra guaranteed money for nothing. The difference between that scenario and this scenario is that I'm saving pretty much, you know, 2.5 million over the first 2 years, and I mean, not the mutual. If I decide not to keep them, the mutual option buyout's going to be a few $100,000 higher, but you know, the 25% is not really a huge deal. You want to spend as least guaranteed money as you can. And front-loading contracts is overrated. There's really no value to it. If you sort of serial front-load contracts, that money will always be in arrears. It will never be in pocket. So it's not really a habit that's going to set you ahead of the game, even though it feels fiscally responsible. It's really not. And you can see I'm looking at a bunch of different pitchers. First and foremost, this guy is the gem of the pitching class, in my opinion. You see, I opened up with 5 years at 26 million to lead off. Then I bumped up to 5 years at 36 million. I'm probably not going to go above that. I mean, I call him the gem of the pitching class, but that's sort of loosely speaking. That's just kind of my opinion. He's not a super elite or super rare commodity. He's just a pretty solid guy. He's posted pretty good numbers in hitters' ballparks throughout his career without a great defense supporting him. The 3.58 ERA is a bit deceiving because his opponent's on-base and slugging would suggest that it's probably going to be a little bit higher and probably in the high 3s or right around 4. But given his ratings, you know, he's 31, so he still has plenty of good years left. You know, he's a nice, solid pickup to add to my rotation as a number 3 starter. I don't mind keeping him around for a few years while I add organizational depth. You know, he'll fill that hole nicely. And there are a slew of other pitchers who are not quite as good, but not too shabby either. So what I've been doing is I've been just offering, you know, while I've been sort of hemming and hawing about whether I'm overpaying Espinoza for such a long time commitment. I've been sort of throwing out 1 year feeler deals since people don't sign until uh, after the sixth cycle, so 24 hours of free agency. I can just throw out these 1 year feeler deals and just revoke them if I decide I don't want them. So I took a shot at this guy, and somebody was bidding more than, and I was outbid, so I just decided to forget about him. And then I gave each of these two guys a contract offer. I'm not going to want to keep both of these in 2 more cycles. I mean, the fact that I'm leading for a 1 year deal, basically right at their asking price, means that everyone else is just ignoring them. So I'll probably end up valuing this guy more than the other one since he's a year younger. And you can see he played in Salt Lake, Wrigley, Cleveland, and he has pretty decent stats, a 4 ERA. He can throw a bunch of innings. There's really nothing to dislike about him. Even though he's 36 to the $14 million training budget, I'll roll with it, whatever. And just because I'm getting him for 1 year at 5.8 million doesn't mean that that's what his open market value is. There are like 10 different middle of the rotation relievers asking between 5 and 6 million, and people are sort of just going to decide who they want to pursue through their own arbitrary strategies. And there are going to be a couple guys who slip through the cracks, and these are two of the examples, who really aren't all that different than everyone else. It's just that people happen to pursue different pitchers. So if I were to sign him for 1 year at 5.8 million, that's still a pretty good deal, and I could always unload him for a pitcher needy guy. So I don't know. I'm probably going to revoke my offer on O'Neill and then see who decide what to do with Espinoza and Ducey. Maybe take both, maybe not. Who knows? And this is the one other guy I'm targeting. He's a relief pitcher. You can see he's really good at keeping opponents off the base path, and a good ERA, good whip. He's had the benefit of a slight pitcher's park, but a reliever who can give 70 plus effective relief innings a year is always pretty good. And the price is definitely right. I offered the $1 signing bonus because I always like just to one up the person who just opens the screen and hits submit. It's just, why not? It's worth it. And so you see I gave him the mutual option the second year. I'd probably even keep him for 3.6 million because he's still a pretty decent value. It will be easy to move in a trade, and if he declines it, I basically free roll 600,000 this year. And to be honest, if somebody somehow outbids me before he ends up signing with me, I wouldn't mind extending this contract a year or two. I'd even consider giving him 4 guaranteed years. I just like to keep it short to maintain flexibility for the non-essential players. So basically, anybody who's not going to be, substantially better than any of the options in the class. So anyway, as you can see, I'm basically monopolizing the free agent market. It's going really smoothly so far. You never really know exactly when you're going to get outbid, but right now all the contracts I'm leading, I really like the price I'm leading at, and I think there's a good chance that most of them hold up. So that's pretty good, and I'll keep updating this as people sign.